I'd like to begin with a quote from critic Rick Pointer. On the rare occasions that an exhibition of graphic design appears, it's a safe bet that one complaint will always be heard. Graphic design, someone will say, just doesn't work in a gallery. It isn't art, and it can't possibly be understood out of context. Curiously, the people making this criticism will usually be graphic designers. Hi, my name is Bryn Smith. I'm a graphic designer, and I'm guilty of making this very criticism. I'd be willing to bet that many of you are guilty of this as well. But what are the real tensions that underscore this persistent objection? And what will an examination of the ways in which we talk about exhibitions of graphic design reveal? Today, I'm going to tell you. If it's true that exhibitions are the medium through which most art becomes known, the opposite might be said for graphic design. Posters, books, film titles, signs, and packaging, to name only a few, are all encountered in the context of day-to-day life. From early exhibitions that included graphic design to the first major survey of the field in 1989, discussions around whether a designed object could be understood without the cultural or commercial context of its making were non-existent. Emphasis was on exposing the general public to the field, on gaining recognition of graphic design as a genuine discipline. It was accepted that the museum removed an object from its original context in order to highlight it. But that view has recently begun to shift, and graphic design's relationship to the gallery is changing. It is this shift, this contemporary phenomenon, that sparked my inquiry into this topic. Wildlife, not to mention death and imprisonment, are often invoked in reviews and commentary around exhibitions of graphic design. In an essay written in 2006, designer and curator Peter Belach characterized the practice like this. Presenting design in an exhibition space is akin to looking at a collection of stuffed birds in order to study how they fly and sing. And while the jacket of a book might not evoke the flight or melody of a songbird, the line still resonates. Belach's essay argues for an end to the passive presentation of design under glass. His argument encompasses not only context, but the difficulty in defining a practice with evolving boundaries. But I want to focus for a moment on his choice of metaphor. This notion of life, death, and the real world versus the gallery comes up again and again when discussing exhibitions of graphic design. For example, seeing it in captivity felt wrong. Exotic specimens caught under glass. And from a review of graphic design now in production last year, captured like so many vividly patterned butterflies in frames and cases and on monitors and walls. The designers I talked with throughout my research reinforced this reaction. The very difficult to define aura of their work is often what is mourned when an object exits daily life and enters the museum. Designers are especially sensitive to context as they frame and translate content daily with close attention to its medium. Aura, in the case of graphic design, is not always rooted in the object's uniqueness or authenticity as it is in art, but often in the work's connection to and activation in the everyday. The gallery upends that careful framing and can sometimes feel like a violation. Graphic design now in production highlighted the prevalence of the designer as entrepreneur and the emergence of a more introspective, diverse practice. Designers are now increasingly interested in production, authorship, and both commercial and self-initiated projects. Take This Axe by graphic designer Peter Buchanan Smith, for example. And despite the objections I've been discussing, more designers are engaging the exhibition space as part of this diverse job description. These designer curators approach exhibiting practice differently, often focusing on the nature of representation itself and challenging traditional norms. Peter Belach's graphic design in the White Cube blurred the boundaries between the street and the gallery, using the same posters to both exhibit and advertise the show. Designer Zach Kai's first solo exhibition, Working With, highlights his production in relation to a number of collaborators, defining graphic design as a practice that mediates and is mediated by its allied disciplines. The central theme of Wide White Space, a meta-exhibition on exhibitions of graphic design, curated by John Sweda, is whether the practice should rightfully belong inside the white cube. Many of the works in that show, such as Experimental Jet Set's Kelly 33.3, explored recursivity as did the Projects design poster for the New York leg of graphic design now in production. I believe these approaches hold greater significance for the field at large and are pushing discourse around representation forward. Let's take a closer look at one outstanding example. In 2009, Swiss designer Julia Born mounted title of the show at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Leipzig, Germany. The installation showcased Born's versatile projects without displaying a single object. Instead, her work appeared in the form of large-scale book pages, blown up and applied directly onto the gallery walls. The show's catalog, in a transposition of scale, featured photographs of the gallery. The details of the rooms slip into the photos, creating a reflexive set of representations. Even in photographs, the installation is disorienting. It's difficult to completely unravel the relationship between the work on the walls, the work in the catalog, and the work that is the exhibition itself. This condition is known in literature as a mise en abîme and dates back to 19th century France. One of its basic tenets is a means by which the work turns back upon itself, emphasizing meaning and form. Here it highlighted the designer's thinking process and circumvented the problem of displaying graphic design without context. The viewer is left to question and contemplate the work as a whole, and to experience this new context firsthand. Utilizing the tools of graphic design, this exhibition is a refreshing provocation to traditional display and comes closest to escaping the challenge of placing graphic design into the placeless white cube. A project I've been developing in addition to my research pushes the issue of context even further, taking the exhibition completely outside the museum and challenging me to apply my conclusions to the real world. In the Wild highlights noteworthy examples of graphic design in the context of a featured city. A bi-monthly exhibition series and publication, the format is a pocket-sized map that acts as both catalog and guide. Each issue explores a single theme through a curated selection of works located on the map. The first New York-based issue includes this typography on the corner of 23rd Street and 6th Avenue, warning pedestrians to look before crossing the city's busiest intersections. It includes this storefront, whose visual language of stamps and stencils set in Helvetica and Courier is far from common, and this billboard on Houston Street, which turns the Puck Building into an eerie roadside inn. In the Wild seeks to further test and question the constraints of a museum, taking the argument that graphic design belongs in the everyday to its extreme. I believe it's time to rethink exhibiting practice in graphic design. From this cabinet in an Amsterdam designer's living room to the eclectic installations at Graphic Design Worlds, important discourse is beginning to happen within the exhibitions themselves, as designer curators push and explore the medium, but only if we, as designers, curators, and critics, recognize these attempts, not as anomalies or avant-garde explorations, but as critiques and efforts to address a real problem. The ways in which we talk about and think about exhibitions reveal our own discomfort with placing graphic design under glass. As institutions collecting the subject increase, it's time to bring this debate boldly into the open, not in order to find one solution, because I don't believe just one solution exists, but to embrace many in order to push the discipline further and expand exhibiting practice, to challenge us and the public. As Born's exhibition demonstrated, graphic design is uniquely suited to this task. So let's begin today by moving past the hereby cliched complaint that graphic design just doesn't work in a gallery. I'll even go first. Thank you.